The moment I stepped into that old Pennsylvania lodge, I felt the kind of tension you only get before a storm, quiet, heavy, and hiding something ugly beneath the surface. If you're into mind-bending mysteries and cold-blooded secrets, smash that subscribe button and hit like so you don't miss what comes next. The Tuesday Night Circle wasn't supposed to become a crime board, at least not officially. But when you gather a writer, a retired federal investigator, an artist with attitude, a lawyer who breathes procedure, a parish minister, and well, me, things tend to escalate fast. My Aunt Martha Weller hosted the whole thing at her place, an antique stuffed, timber-beamed house on the edge of Crestwood, a quiet American town where trouble usually hides behind trimmed hedges and Sunday smiles. Aunt Martha looked like she'd stepped out of another century. Lace gloves, black brocade dress cinched tight at the waist, hair pinned high like a snow-white crown. She knitted through everything, arguments, updates, even scandals. But don't let the grandmother vibe fool you. She sees through people the way accountants see through bad excuses. Ray West, my cousin and an author always 3 drafts behind schedule, leaned back in his chair, exhaling smoke like he was auditioning for a noir remake. "Unsolved cases," he said, savoring the phrase. "Now that's where the real juice is." Joy Lane, short-haired, sharp-eyed, and allergic to tact, shot back. He just likes hearing himself say things dramatically. Ray rolled his eyes. Aunt Martha knitted harder. Sir Henry Clayton, the retired federal commissioner visiting from D.C., gave a polite cough. The man had the posture of someone who used to speak only when headlines needed adjusting. We had 6 people in the room: Ray, Joy, Sir Henry, Reverend Pender, Attorney Mark Peck, and Aunt Martha, a mismatched squad with enough ego to fill a boardroom. Ray pushed on. "I mean real mysteries, murders, disappearances, things no one ever cracked." Sir Henry lifted a brow. "I never talk shop," he said, which was a lie so transparent even the minister winced. We bantered like that until Joy snapped her fingers. "Let's make it a game, a weekly one. Call it the Tuesday Night Club. Each of us brings a mystery we personally know, real events, real answers. We guess. Then we roast whoever gets it wrong." Everyone nodded, until Joy realized she'd forgotten Aunt Martha entirely. Aunt Martha looked up with a smile that could disarm a SWAT team. "Oh, I'd love to join, dear." Joy blinked, regrouped, and pretended she wasn't surprised. Sir Henry got nominated to kick off the first mystery. He hesitated at first, an unusual sight for a man built out of case files and deadlines. Then he sighed, crossed his legs, and said, "All right, there's one case. 3 people at dinner, tinned lobster on the menu. Hours later, violent illness. 2 survived. 1 didn't." Ray whistled. "Now we're talking." The death had been ruled food poisoning. Straightforward, routine, buried literally, but rumors spread. Letters poured into the bureau. Accusations flew. And then came an exhumation order, because whispers, Sir Henry reminded us, have toppled sturdier walls. Inside the coffin, science found what the town gossip couldn't name: arsenic. And just like that, the Tuesday Night Circle's first challenge was live. Sir Henry paused just long enough to let the tension bite. The fire cracked behind him. Joy leaned forward like she was about to sketch him on the spot. Ray flicked ash into a tray shaped like an eagle, Aunt Martha's idea of patriotic decor. "The victim," Sir Henry continued, "was Linda Harper. Middle-aged, quiet, predictable. Lived in Ridgefield, a suburban pocket outside Pittsburgh. Her husband, Andrew Harper, was a traveling rep for a pharmaceutical supplier. Good with people, bad with money. And then there was the 3rd resident of the house, Mary Collins, the family companion. 60, cheerful, round-faced, the type who brought muffins to PTA events even though she had no kids." I caught Aunt Martha's glance. She always clocked character descriptions like they were financial red flags. "Here's where it gets strange," Sir Henry said. Andrew had stayed at a small hotel in Cleveland the day before the death. A chambermaid noticed he'd used fresh blotting paper, brand new. She, in her boredom, held it to the mirror and read the reversed impressions. Joy smirked. "Snooping, America's favorite hobby." The message was simple: and ominous. Entirely dependent on my wife. When she is gone, hundreds and thousands. Sir Henry spread his hands. The staff filled in the blanks. Murder for inheritance. A lover on the side. A man waiting for the payday. Classic misdirection, I muttered. He nodded. Except sometimes the cliché is the truth. Rumors sprinted faster than our local internet provider. One of the chambermaid's relatives lived in Ridgefield and fed the fire. Andrew Harper had been far too friendly with the town doctor's daughter, an attractive woman in her 30s. Soon, the story had everything. Motives, poison, secret romance. Enough noise reached the authorities that even the Bureau felt compelled to act. Mark Peck, our resident lawyer, interlocked his fingers. Public pressure, always the most inconvenient witness. With the exhumation, Sir Henry continued, the arsenic was undeniable. So the question became, how was it delivered? And by whom? The supper that night had been plain: tinned lobster, salad, trifle, bread, cheese. All three people ate the same dishes. All three got sick. Only one died. Joy tapped her pen. So the poison wasn't in the lobster. Correct. And Andrew arrived just as dinner was being served, meaning no chance to tamper beforehand. Sir Henry shifted. That left one more detail. After supper, Andrew went to the kitchen and asked for a bowl of cornstarch pudding for his wife, who said she felt unwell. He waited there while the young maid, Gladys Lane, prepared it. Ray straightened. Opportunity, the minister added softly, and access. A pharmaceutical rep would know where to get arsenic. Sir Henry nodded. Exactly. It looked airtight, until Miss Collins, the companion, told us something that shattered the entire theory. Aunt Martha stopped knitting. She said she drank the whole bowl of pudding, not Linda. Joy sat up. Wait, what? Sir Henry gave a thin smile. Linda pushed it aside, complaining she felt too ill. Miss Collins, who was on yet another diet, convinced herself she deserved a treat and drank it, all of it. Which means, Mark Peck said slowly, if the pudding was poisoned, Miss Collins would be dead, not Linda, Sir Henry finished. The room fell silent. Ray exhaled. So the neat little narrative just collapsed. Like most neat narratives, Sir Henry replied. Andrew suddenly had no delivery method tying him to the poison, the blotter message. He claimed he'd been writing to his brother in Arizona about financial trouble. He insisted the phrase hundreds and thousands referred to people in the same situation. Joy waved a hand. That's painfully convenient. Yes, but not enough to arrest him. Sir Henry leaned back. So the case stalled for nearly a year. I felt Aunt Martha's gaze sharpen, never a good sign. Sir Henry's voice softened. Only recently did the real solution land on my desk, and I doubt any of you will guess it. Joy grinned. Try me. We will all try, Ray said, checking his watch. 5 minutes. Then we go around the room. Aunt Martha resumed knitting, needles clicking like a metronome counting down judgment. The game had officially begun. When the 5 minutes were up, Ray cleared his throat like a moderator at a shareholders' meeting. All right, let's hear the theories. Reverend Pender shifted uncomfortably. I'm afraid I'm lost. Every clue points toward Andrew, yet the delivery method rules him out. I can't reconcile the two. Joy snapped her fingers. The companion, Mary Collins. Everyone keeps acting like older women can't have dark motives. Maybe she was in love with Andrew. Maybe she hated Linda. Maybe she was tired of being the pleasant helper and finally snapped. Mark Peck raised a brow. Unfounded. No financial gain, no inheritance, and drinking the pudding herself, Joy shrugged. Maybe that was a lie. Highly irregular, Mark muttered. And inefficient. If she wanted Linda dead, there were simpler methods. Ray leaned forward. The husband still fits best. Motive, opportunity, access to poison. He might have doctored something we haven't identified. But that raises a question, I said. Why would the poison show up only in Linda, not him? Not Collins? Sir Henry didn't answer. He let the tension spool out, watching us like a man observing rookies try to decode a quarterly report. Then Aunt Martha said, You are all overlooking the most obvious suspect. Joy groaned. Don't say Satan, Reverend style. Aunt Martha ignored her. Her needles clicked softly. The maid, Gladys Lane. The room went dead still. Ray blinked. The maid, why on earth would she? She was extremely agitated when questioned, Aunt Martha said. Crying, shaking, unable to focus. And Andrew Harper, coarse, jovial, and always too friendly with young women, came home to a house with a pretty young thing, as you men say. Sir Henry's eyes narrowed, not in disagreement but in interest. Aunt Martha continued, a girl like Gladys would be easy to manipulate, easy to promise things to, easy to discard. If Andrew got her into trouble, she might be desperate enough to follow his instructions, especially if he promised marriage once his wife was gone. Joy sat back slowly. That actually tracks. Ray frowned. Hold on, even if she helped, how was the poison delivered? It wasn't in the pudding. No, Aunt Martha said. It was in the trifle. Mark Peck blinked. Trifle? Everyone ate trifle. Aunt Martha gave him a patient look. Dear, have you ever seen someone on a strict diet eat trifle? Mary Collins was banting, as she put it. She wouldn't touch dessert. Sir Henry didn't speak, but he folded his hands in a way that announced she'd hit the strike zone. And Andrew Harper? I asked. He could simply scrape off the topping, Aunt Martha said. Those little pink and white sugar sprinkles people call. What is it? Hundreds and thousands. Ray froze. Wait, like in the message on the blotter, Aunt Martha nodded. Naturally. When Sir Henry mentioned trifle and then repeated that phrase, the connection was too plain to miss. Joy stared. So the poison was mixed into the sprinkles? Yes, and the maid applied them. It was her job to finish the dessert. Silence hit us again, heavier this time, like a boardroom right after someone reveals who tanked the quarter. Sir Henry finally spoke. Remarkable. Ray lifted his hands. Hold on. If that's true, what happened to the maid? Sir Henry hesitated just long enough to confirm Aunt Martha's accuracy. Gladys Lane died last week, he said quietly. A difficult childbirth. The baby didn't survive. Andrew Harper had abandoned her for another woman, and when she realized he never intended to keep his promises, she confessed everything. The fire popped. Joy swore under her breath. Ray rubbed his face. So Aunt Martha solved it before you even revealed the ending. I glanced at her. She'd already returned to knitting, fingers steady, expression mild, as if she hadn't just cracked a federal case in a living room armchair. You don't know men like Andrew, she said softly, but you will. Life teaches these things. Sir Henry nodded. Astonishing insight. Aunt Martha smiled gently. Hardly. Human nature is the same everywhere. Crestwood, Ridgefield, Washington. You just have to look. The room didn't bounce back immediately. A revelation like that sticks, heavy as an overdue report. Sir Henry studied Aunt Martha with the respect of a man who just discovered a hidden expert on his team. Before anyone could praise her, she said quietly, understanding people is like tracking spending patterns. The truth shows up if you know what to look for. Joy groaned. Then Andrew Harper was basically a walking red flag. Precisely, Aunt Martha replied. Sir Henry cleared his throat. That concludes our first case. Impressive beginning. Ray rubbed his palms together. Next mystery. Same rules, real case, real stakes. Who's presenting? Silence. Then Reverend Pender lifted a hand. I have one. An old incident from when I first led a parish in northern Michigan. A disappearance. Joy lit up. Now we're talking. It happened in Milford, the Reverend said. Quiet town, reserved people, heavy on superstition. The missing woman was Evelyn Hart, mid-40s, sharp-minded director of the local historical society. She vanished inside a locked building. Ray blinked. A locked room case. Yes, Pender said. Evelyn was last seen entering the Milford Museum. She unlocked the main door, stepped inside, shut it, and that was the end of her. Mark Peck frowned. Back exits, windows, none usable, the Reverend said. Alarms were functional, no triggers, door found locked from the inside. Aunt Martha paused her knitting. That is unusual. The sheriff assumed she staged it, Pender continued. Said she liked causing a stir. But nothing supported that theory. No note, no struggle, no tracks. Even the dust on the floor was untouched. Joy whispered, creepy. There were also rumors, Pender added, that decades earlier another caretaker disappeared in the same building. Records were unclear gossip, conflicting statements. Sir Henry's tone sharpened. Patterns matter, even bad ones. That's what troubled me, the Reverend said. 3 weeks after Evelyn vanished, I went to the museum alone. Needed to prove to myself nothing supernatural was involved. Joyce shook her head. Of course you went alone. I used the sheriff's key, he continued. Walked every room, nothing, until I reached the storage area. I opened the door. The room leaned in. I smelled something metallic, sharp. The lights flickered. And for the first time in my career, I felt something wrong, not spiritual, not logical, just wrong. Ray straightened. Did you tell the sheriff? He claimed Evelyn ran off. Case closed, but she never returned. The museum shut down a year later. Silence spread across the room, thick as smoke. Ray finally exhaled. Okay, same rules as before. 5 minutes to think. Aunt Martha set her knitting neatly on her lap. A locked room disappearance should be refreshing. 5 minutes later, Ray called time. A locked room disappearance had everyone sitting straighter. Legal mind first, Ray said, pointing at Mark Peck. Mark cleared his throat. No supernatural angle. She left the building somehow. Either a hidden exit or a structural gap everyone missed. Joyce scoffed. A 40-something woman squeezing through vents. Come on. People fit through impressive spaces when desperate, Mark replied. But fine, let's assume no vents. That leaves misdirection. Sir Henry nodded, timing illusion. She enters the museum. Someone else is already inside. They lock the door behind her, then exit another way. Reverend Pender frowned. We inspected everything. No usable exits. The museum was built over an old mill, Sir Henry said. Old foundations rarely stay truly sealed. Aunt Martha finally looked up from her knitting. Basements especially. Ray motioned to her. You sound confident. I'm simply saying people trust signs that say sealed more than they trust facts, she replied. But before exits, consider motive. Evelyn Hart was cautious and punctual. She would only enter a dark building alone if she expected someone. Joyce snapped her fingers. A setup. Likely, Aunt Martha agreed. Evelyn managed historical records, property transfers, information people prefer buried. Sir Henry's eyes narrowed. So someone had something to lose. Reverend Pender nodded slowly. The museum custodian, Frank Marston, knew the building better than anyone. 30 years on staff. Ray leaned forward. Where was he during the disappearance? Visiting family, Pender said, uncertain. In Traverse City. Joy's face twisted. Unverified alibi alert. Sir Henry tapped his knee. He would also know any leftover mill access points. Aunt Martha added softly, and Evelyn likely discovered something that made confronting him unavoidable. Mark asked, but the door was locked from inside. How did he leave? Aunt Martha replied, the same way Evelyn vanished through the mill structure beneath the building. A chute, hatch, or shaft connected to the old foundation. Hidden but not impossible. Reverend Pender exhaled. I remember in the storage room I felt airflow, but there shouldn't have been any. That's your answer, Sir Henry said. A forgotten passage. Joy leaned in. So how did Evelyn get downstairs? Voluntarily or unwillingly, Aunt Martha said. She may have been led, pushed, or tricked. Someone who knew the building could move her without leaving obvious disturbance. Ray nodded slowly. So the rumor about a previous disappearance was likely tied to the same access, Sir Henry finished. Old workers vanish, stories become legend. Reverend Pender rubbed his forehead. I can't believe I dismissed it. Aunt Martha resumed knitting. People believe in curses when the real explanation is maintenance tunnels. Ray folded his hands. So the culprit is clear. Aunt Martha gave a small nod. Frank Marston, the only person with motive building knowledge and opportunity. He arranged the meeting, used the old mill access to eliminate Evelyn, locked the museum door to sell the illusion, then slipped out through the foundation. Silence settled again. Reverend Pender whispered, I wish I'd understood it then. Aunt Martha said softly, truth doesn't hide in ghosts, dear. It hides in blueprints. Ray glanced around the room. 2 mysteries down. Who's next? Sir Henry shook his head. Not me, someone else should take a turn. I sighed. Fine, I've got a case. Phoenix, about 10 years ago. A disappearance paired with an attempted murder. Joy brightened. Perfect, go. The client was Daniel Rhodes, a tech consultant, reliable guy. His younger brother Kyle vanished, apartment unlocked, laptop running, car untouched, no struggle. His phone pinged twice, his place then an industrial area by the Salt River. After that, silence. Sir Henry murmured, classic dump zone. Yep, police didn't treat it as urgent. But Daniel insisted Kyle had been working cybersecurity for a defense contractor. Sensitive stuff. Mark tightened his jaw, meaning someone else might have wanted access. Exactly. 3 days later, Daniel's home office was broken into. Nothing stolen except a hard drive. Daniel was found unconscious, head trauma but alive. The room quieted. Aunt Martha lowered her knitting. So the connection to Kyle wasn't coincidence. No. Before he was attacked, Daniel mentioned a name Kyle had flagged, Apex Systems, a mid-sized logistics firm near Mesa. Looked clean, too clean. Employee lists, financials, inventory logs, everything polished like someone scrubbed the noise. Sir Henry nodded. Artificial compliance. It's a sign. A security guard at Apex claimed he saw someone who looked like Kyle enter a restricted warehouse 2 nights before he disappeared, wearing an Apex badge. Kyle had no tie to the company. Joy's eyes narrowed. So he infiltrated a facility he shouldn't have access to. Exactly. But when investigators asked to check the warehouse, Apex invoked federal contracts and denied access. Police backed off. Ray shook his head. Convenient. Then came the SUV, I continued. Burned out in the desert. Inside, fragments of a laptop and a melted backpack. 2 items survived, the metal ring from Kyle's keychain and a USB drive. Mark asked, body? I shook my head. No body, Kyle was gone. The USB held a single text file. It read, if you're seeing this, I didn't walk away. Apex is a shell. Joy whispered, shell for what? That's the question. One more detail. The night Daniel was attacked, the intruder disabled his house alarm using a code only Daniel and Kyle knew. Sir Henry stiffened. So either Kyle cooperated or someone extracted the code. Exactly. That leaves us with this. Kyle infiltrated Apex. He vanished. Daniel was nearly killed. A burned SUV appeared. Apex refused access to the warehouse. And Kyle left one message. Ray tapped the table. So what's our challenge? I looked around the room. Who took Kyle Rhodes and why? 5 minutes were given for reflection. Aunt Martha folded her hands. This case, she said quietly, smells of something corporate and something personal. Her needles clicked back to life as the clock began. Cha este yeri 7/7, approximately 3180 sem VLOV VLEM itye. Ray checked his watch. Time's up, let's solve this. Mark Peck started. Apex hid something. Kyle found it, they removed him. Sir Henry shook his head. Too simple. Burning a vehicle is theatrical. Professionals don't advertise. Joy leaned forward. Kyle entering a restricted warehouse with a badge. Someone let him in. Someone wanted him inside. Aunt Martha nodded. Yes, the badge wasn't a mistake, it was bait. Ray frowned. But why lure him if they were just going to take him? Because they needed him isolated, Aunt Martha said calmly. No witnesses, no cameras, just a controlled environment inside that warehouse. Reverend Pender asked, then why attack Daniel? To retrieve something, she answered. The intruder stole only a hard drive, nothing else. That means the goal was information, not violence. Sir Henry added, which aligns with the USB message. Apex is a shell. Someone hid behind that company. I stepped in. Later we learned the warehouse was subcontracted to Vantage Key Logistics. On paper they handled supply routing. In reality, they tested encrypted hardware for defense clients. Ray's eyes widened. So Kyle accessed something tied to them. Yes, I said. He hit their server, they tracked him, and they planned the trap. Joy tapped the table. Which means someone inside Vantage Key engineered the whole setup. Aunt Martha lifted her gaze. More importantly, someone pushed Kyle toward Apex to begin with. The room paused. Ray asked, "You're implying someone close?" Aunt Martha looked at me gently. "Daniel," I frowned. "Daniel didn't set him up." "Not intentionally," she said. "But Daniel mentioned Apex to Kyle. He worked in tech consulting. He likely repeated rumors he'd heard, rumors tied to Vantage Key." Kyle investigated. "Vantage noticed," Mark Peck whispered, "so Daniel unknowingly put him on their radar." "Exactly," Aunt Martha said. "Kyle took initiative, accessed the server, entered the warehouse when presented with a fake badge. And once inside, they captured him." Sir Henry nodded. "Then they searched Daniel's home because they didn't know how much Kyle shared. And used an alarm code both brothers knew," Joy added. "Meaning Kyle might have given it under pressure, or Daniel revealed it earlier without realizing it would matter." I continued. "Investigators later confirmed the burned SUV was staged. The drive Kyle left was genuine, but the arson was deliberate misdirection." Reverend Pender swallowed. "So Kyle wasn't killed?" "No," I said. "Months after he vanished, encrypted packets matching his coding style appeared in federal logs. Someone was using his skills." Aunt Martha folded her knitting. "Then the answer is clear. Kyle Rhodes was taken by the people behind Vantage Key's hidden operation because he accessed data they could not afford to lose." Ray nodded slowly. "A professional abduction disguised as a disappearance." "Exactly," Aunt Martha said. "Not personal, not random, just business carried out in the darkest way." Ray stood facing the camera. "If you enjoyed tonight's lineup of mysteries, hit subscribe and drop a like. It keeps these stories coming. And tell us in the comments, which case did you figure out before the circle did?" The fire dimmed. The room emptied, but the secrets lingered, like unresolved equations waiting for the next Tuesday night.